Okay, I'm going to show you how to solve these two examples. You can see the question here. It's the same question for each example, except the dimensions change. So if we're going to solve this equation, we can do it by using something called the inverse matrix method. But to use the inverse matrix method, your matrix A has to have an inverse. So A inverse must exist. Now, the university where I teach at expects a student to solve this using their graphing calculator. So that's how I'm going to solve these. That's how I'm going to show you how to do these. So we start with the equation A times X is equal to B. And if it says to solve the equation, you have to find the unknown. Now, you know what A is. You're told what B is, and the only unknown is X. So if you're going to solve it, it means to find the matrix X. So we need to get X by itself. Now, if A, B, and X were just numbers, we could divide both sides by the number A, and then you would have X equals the number B over A. But A, B, and X are not numbers, they're matrices, and division doesn't mean anything with a matrix. So if I'm going to solve this, i.e. if I'm going to find X, then we need to multiply both sides by A inverse. So to do this, A inverse has to exist. Now, I have multiplied the left-hand side of this part of the equation by A inverse. I must multiply the left-hand side of this by A inverse. And a lot of students, because of the spacing, will just tack on A inverse at the end there. Matrix multiplication is not commutative. The order matters. So as long as A inverse exists, then A inverse times A will give you the matrix I, the identity matrix, which is the equivalent of the number 1. And so the identity matrix times X is just going to give you X. So this is how you find X. X is going to be A inverse times B. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to define A in my matrix menu. So second X inverse. And I'm going to go over to the editor. And so under the name A. Now the matrix A here is a 2 by 2. So I have to tell it 2 by 2. And then I can just write over the top of what's left. So the first row is 1, enter, 2, enter. The second row is 3, enter, -5, enter. Then I have to get out of the matrix menu, second mode, and then I have to get back in, second X inverse. And then I'm going to go scroll over to the editor, and I'm going to scroll down to B, and I'm going to define that matrix, so enter. Now, what are the dimensions of B? B has 2 rows and 1 column, so it's a 2 by 1. 2, enter, 1, enter. And so that first row is 5, enter, and the next row is -7, enter. Now I need to get out of the matrix menu, and I'm going to get back in, second X inverse, and this is where I'm going to tell it to multiply A inverse times B. So under names, it's already at A, so I'm going to click enter. Then I'm going to come here to the X inverse button, and then you can hit the multiplication button if you like. You actually don't have to. And then get back into the matrix menu, second X inverse, and under names, scroll down to B. And that puts you back on the main page, and then press enter. And so I have now found X. X is equal to A inverse times B. And so that's the answer. I have solved the equation, i.e. I found X. Now in the next part, it's exactly the same thing. I have to solve this equation. I have to find X, and it's going to be A inverse times B. And so I just have to define the matrices A and B in my calculator. So I get back into the matrix menu. I'm going to go over to the editor, and again it's highlighted on A, so I'm just going to press enter. Now in this example, A is a 3 by 3. And I'm just going to overwrite row by row. Then 0, 2, 3, then -1, 5, and 8. I'm just going to double check this because it's a 3 by 3. So I'm just scanning the columns now. Looks good. I'm going to get out, second mode, and get back in, second X inverse. And I'm going to scroll over to the editor because now I'm going to define a new matrix B. So I'm going to scroll down here to B and press enter. This matrix B, for example 2, has 1, 2, 3 rows and 1 column. It is a 3 by 1. Okay. And so now I've got -5, enter, 1, enter, and -8. That looks good. I'm going to get out, second mode, and get back in, second X inverse. Then on names, I'm going to choose A, then X inverse, and then I want it times B. Now, I used the multiplication symbol before. I don't have to use it. I won't use it this time. I'll get back into the matrix menu and just choose B. Second X inverse. Under names, I'm going to choose B. Enter. That takes me back onto the main page. That is also A inverse times B. I didn't have to type in the multiplication symbol. Now I'm just going to click enter. And I have my answer. Notice there I have big long decimals, and your calculator actually stops at like 9 decimal places, but that's actually 8.66666 forever. So when it's like this, where I teach, they prefer you not write it in decimal form, especially when you have an infinite decimal expansion. Fractions are precise. So how do we get this into fractional form? Well, I'm just going to click on Math, the Math button, and then click the Enter button 2 times. Enter, enter. And that's my exact answer. So my matrix X is 26/3, 6, and -11/3. So to solve this equation, I have found the matrix X, and so that's my answer. Okay, so we've seen a 2-dimensional example and a 3-dimensional example, so I hope that that helps, and I'm going to stop the video here.